Hi, I'm Dr. John Demartini, and this is Win the Day with James Whittaker.
You're listening to Win the Day with James Whittaker.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Broadcasting from Los Angeles, California, here's your host, James Whittaker.
Let's go.
Hey winners, welcome back to Win the Day. The quote for this episode comes from Mahatma Gandhi and says, "Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny." Dr. John Demartini is a polymath and world-renowned human behavior expert. He's the author of 40 self-development books translated into 36 languages, founder of a revolutionary psychology tool, the Demartini Method, and renowned speaker in more than 100 countries. As a lifelong student, Dr. Demartini has studied 30,000 books across all the defined academic disciplines. His mission is to share knowledge and wisdom that empowers you to become a master of your own life and destiny. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to identify your highest values, the biggest barriers to unlocking your potential, the daily rituals that help you win each day, and how to master your mind to create the life you want. Before we begin, the right bit of inspiration can completely change the trajectory of someone's life. So if there's a friend or loved one out there who needs to hear this episode or could use some help to win the day, share it with them right now. All right, let's win the day with the man, the legend, Dr. John Demartini. John, great to see you, my friend. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I was looking forward to it.
Well, you'll be able to understand my accent too, which sometimes is a bit of a challenge with the American guests that we have on the show.
You're very clear, very clear. But definitely from down under.
Well, to kick things off, who was the first person to believe in you?
I think probably I'd have to say Paul C. Bragg. When I was 17 years old, I was a long-haired hippie surfer living on the North Shore of Oahu, which I was recently at. He shared with me insights and principles that I used to this day. This is 52 years ago. And he told me to say to myself, when I told him I didn't know how to read and didn't know how to speak properly, to say that I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom. And he made me say that over and over again until that became a belief system that I could develop. And so, yeah, I think he had it. I mean, I believe my parents believed in me in different ways, but he was definitely a catalyst for the change in the trajectory of my life, without a doubt.
Yeah, it reminds me so much of that quote, "When the student is ready, the master will appear."
He appeared on the right day at the right time. Definitely, without a doubt.
And you then became a voracious consumer of information. I guess having all of those limiting beliefs up until 17, the moment you unlock that power, it's like, cool, how much of this can I access to see, you become addicted to the pursuit of how great you can be and the impact that you have on the world.
Well, I had a speech impediment as a child, and I went to a speech pathologist when I was a year and a half old because I wasn't using my mouth properly. I was told in first grade that I would never be able to read or write or communicate effectively. Probably wouldn't go very far, amount to much. Then at 17, when I met Paul Bragg, that shifted. What he said to me, he said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. And the body must be directed by the mind, and mind must be guided by the soul to maximize our potential. And it was really simple, kind of a philosophical idea. But the way he said it with such certainty made me believe that maybe if I followed his ideas, that I could maybe transform the challenges I had with speaking and learning into something I could do something with. And that night, I saw a dream or a vision, epiphany, of me standing in front of a large group of people speaking, probably some sort of dissociative identity event. But when I saw that, I got tears in my eyes and I just felt that I was there. And it was like my destiny. And I ended up leaving Hawaii and going to California and hitchhiking back to Texas, which is where my parents were living. I took a GED and some miraculously way saying to myself, I'm a genius, and I passed it. I tried to go to school. I thought I was going to do the same thing, and I failed. I got a 27 on my test. And I thought, this isn't going to happen. And I kept running what my first grade teacher told me. My mom saw me crying on the living room floor, and she said, son, what happened? I said, I blew the test. I guess I'll never be able to read or write or communicate effectively. And she said, whether you become a great teacher and philosopher and travel the world like you say you want to do now, or you return to Hawaii and ride big waves, which you've done, or return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, which you've done, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what you do. No matter what, we just love you. When she said that, my hand went into a fist, and I looked up and I saw the vision that the night I met Paul Bragg about me speaking in front of a group of people. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called, studying and learning and reading. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and healing and philosophy. and I'm going to do whatever it takes, travel whatever distance, pay whatever price to give my surface of love. I got up and I hugged my mom and I went to my room and I got a dictionary out and I started memorizing 30 words a day with the help of my mom and grew my vocabulary 20,000 words in 2 years until I was now from the bottom of the class failing to doing really well in the class at the top. So I just had a determination to do it. And I really believe that it doesn't matter what you've been through or where you come from or what you're going through. What matters is do you have a determination to do something that's deeply meaningful, that you're inspired by, that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get.
Absolutely. And Napoleon Hill talks about this idea that the poverty conscience will automatically overtake any mind that is not preoccupied with being success conscious. And I read that and that just really stood out to me. And the way that I interpreted that was that each day you must make the decision to win or you have automatically made the decision to lose. And that's where the whole win the day philosophy came from.
If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day is going to fill up with low priority distractions that make you feel not. And that's a feedback. That's not a terrible thing. It's a feedback to guide you back to being authentic to what's really important to you.
So if you're not doing high priority items, then by default, you're doing low priority items.
Yeah. And whenever you're doing high priority actions, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the frontal portion of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, and activates the executive center where you have self-governance and you expand space and time horizons and see vision and you now move towards achievement orientation. But if you don't fill your day with high priority actions, your brain gets blood into the amygdala, which is impulse, instinct, survival mentality. So either thrive or survive. That's why if you don't take command of your life and live by design, you're going to live by duty. You're going to be doing what everybody tells you what to do. And you're not going to have the same fulfillment as if you could design your life.
I love this. We're going to have so many things to get into. Speaking of Napoleon Hill, he has a very famous quote: "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." A quote I'm sure you've heard many times before. Since you became successful publicly, what's the biggest adversity you have faced that you were able to identify an equivalent benefit in?
First of all, there are no really negative events out there. There's just events. If you choose to see the negative event as a negative event, that becomes a negative event for you. So I learned a long time ago that if I ask a new set of questions and ask, so what are the opportunities that are sitting here? What are the gifts that are coming out of it? What can I do with this? How is this helping me? How is whatever is happening at this moment helping me fulfill what's most important in my life? Quality of your life is based on quality questions you ask. If you ask quality questions, you get quality outcomes. So if you ask, how is whatever's happening on the way, not in the way, how's it helping you fulfill what's meaningful to you? You transform this so-called negative event into something that's not. And it never was. It was just the ratio of your perceptions. And you trapped yourself by the ratios of perceptions by subordinating to some moral hypocrisy that says that was a terrible event. It was an event. Now the question is, as Milton said, you can make a heaven out of a hell or a hell out of a heaven. You can, thinking makes it so. So why not ask questions and have the wisdom of the ages without the aging process by asking questions that liberate you from that intrusive thought that you've labeled a negative event? And I have had numerous events that would seem to be negative events, but they turn out to be with the other side once I take the time and be accountable and look for the other side.
I know you had your wife pass away as an example, of course, of a very significant event in your life. For someone who has experienced the loss of a loved one or endured extreme trauma, something to them that would be a very traumatic activity, do you process those negative emotions or do they not exist for you in the realm of what you're talking about here?
When she passed away, I already have developed a methodology that was useful that I've taken 5,000 people through the process on. So I just followed the process that I'd learned. We only grieve the loss of things we get attached to, infatuated with, that get dopamine and oxytocin and enkephalons in the brain. Nobody, when you ask, what are you grieving the loss of? No one says, well, I'm grieving the loss of their screaming matches or their aggression or their dirty clothes or their hair in the sink. If you look very carefully, and I've done this for 40-something years, you'll find that there's always the things that you admired, that you got in enkephalons over, that you now grieve the loss of. You only grieve the loss of things that you seek. You are relieved of the loss of things you avoid. So what I did is I balanced out my equation on my wife, because no matter who you're with, there's going to be things you like and dislike. And if you dwell on only the things you liked, you're going to grieve the loss of it. If you also see both sides and see them and honor them for the wholeness of who they are, the supportive and challenging parts, you balance your mind and you free yourself up from some of the grief. So I just followed the process that I've been taking people through for all these years, and it works, and I've been blessed to do that, move through it. And then you honor somebody, because if not, you've made a fantasy of who they are instead of honoring the wholeness of who they are. I'm not a nice person. I'm not a mean person. I'm a human being with a set of values. You support my values, I'm nice as a pussycat. You challenge my values, I can be mean as a tiger. I'm not one side more than the other. I'm both. And my wife is both. And we deserve to honor the wholeness of the individual and not be trapped in a fantasy and then a grief over the loss of the fantasy.
And it's interesting as, being from Australia and living in America, and you obviously someone who travels around the world constantly, sometimes we feel this sense of we should grieve over someone because they have passed away. But if you just lose contact with someone where it might be the last time you had a conversation with them, but you just wake up one day and realize, wow, 20 years ago, that was the last time I saw this person. There was never any level of grief or anything necessary for that because you just drifted away organically rather than some type of blunt event.
There's two forms of grief. Again, the perception of loss of something you were seeking, that you were infatuated with and admired, or the gain of something you looked down on, resented, and despised. So the gain of that is grief. So if you have a neighbor that you don't like and he comes by and starts bothering you, that can be grief. If you have a neighbor that was really close to you and you really admired and they left, then that could be grief. But if all of a sudden the neighbor that you didn't like left, there's relief. And if the person that you really do like comes by, it's relief. So these are ratios of perception, and we're choosing to lock people into a label instead of seeing both sides of people. And the moment we see both sides, we liberate ourselves and have more adaptability and resilience and more capability of just honoring the transformation. I like to think of the world, the master lives in a world of transformation. The masses live in the illusions of gain and loss. My wife gave me an opportunity to apply the principles that I've gotten to learn. And the moment you have a balanced equation, you feel their presence. You don't feel their loss, you feel their presence.
And what about those who say things like sexual abuse or childhood cancer, there is no possible way to find a gift or some type of benefit in that?
They're choosing to stop and buy into the idea that there's no gift in it. That's a belief system. But sometimes it brings family. Cancer brings a lot of families together, and it makes you appreciate people that you've taken for granted sometimes. And it makes you start to focus on what's really priority in your bucket list and what's really priority, so you're not doing low priority things and surviving. So there's always two sides to an event, and it's just taking the time to look and honor that if we sit there and get trapped in a label and refuse to look and just stay stuck, then we're creating our own, behavior and creating our own trauma. Trauma is not what happens to us. Trauma is how we interpret what happens to us.
Well said. And you've got a new book, Balance the Mind, Heal the Body. Congrats on that. So I wanted to bring that up early in this conversation. What's the problem that you wanted to solve with this new book? And who do you want someone to be once they've finished reading it?
I just wanted to give people an insight on the application of physiology that they have within their power. We have an autonomic nervous system, which is made out of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Whenever we see something that's supportive of our values, we tend to want to consume it like prey, and it activates the rest and digest response. When something challenges our values, we tend to think of it as a withdrawal response, a fight or flight response, and we put up a defense. And each of those cause a vasodilation or a vasoconstriction, or a kidneys that increase function or decrease function. Every cell is impacted by the autonomics and the epigenetic expression of the autonomics, and is it creating the symptoms that we can identify. For instance, when all of a sudden we're challenged, our blood sugar goes up. When we're supported, our blood sugar goes down. If we get challenged, our blood pressure goes up, our heart rate goes up. If all of a sudden we're supported, they both go down. So diabetes has a lot to do with the perception of stored challenges that keep activating the sympathetic nervous system and causes an increase in glucagon and a decrease in insulin. So we can actually take and apply perceptions as it applies to physiology, and narrow down what those symptoms could be and identify what the psychology behind it is, and then do something with the psychology and watch the physiology respond to normal again. It's really quite amazing. So that's what the book is about.
And you've mentioned values a lot. I know that the hierarchy of values is a big part of your work. If you were at a dinner party and someone said, help me identify my hierarchy of values right now, what sort of process would you take them through to do that?
Well, I've been studying values 46 years, and I started asking because why do some people walk their talk and some people limp their life? Why do some people do what they say and others don't? And I want to know why. What is it that drives people? And it boiled down to the axiological values. What's valuable to them? What's most important to them? And I found that if you just ask people what their values are, they'll give you social idealisms, peace, kindness, or whatever, all the things, the cliches of society's moral hypocrisies. But I found that that's not what they're living. That's what they're saying. And it's not what you say, it's what you live. So your life demonstrates your values by your actions. So I looked at how they fill their space. You fill your space, things that are valuable to you. So if I gave you something that had zero value, you'd toss it in the trash the second I walked away. If they gave you something with 100% value, you find a way to keep it near you. You value it. There's a study called proxemics, and whatever's valuable to you, you keep close. Whatever's not valuable, you discard. It goes distal. So you look at how people and what they fill their space with. You look at what they spend their time on. They make time, find time, and spend time on things that are valuable to them. They run out of time on things that aren't. When people call me up and say, hey, I want you to do this and this, if it's not valuable to me, I go, I'm busy. If it's something that is really valuable to them, I make the time. So you look at your space, you look at your time, then you look at what energizes you. When you're doing something that's high in your values, your energy goes up. When you're doing your reticular activating system activates the mitochondria and raises your energy because it's engaging. If it's something low on your values, it does the opposite. So you look at where do you gain energy by doing things? What is it all your energy is accelerated by? And you'll find that there's a pattern. If you answer those questions, there's a repeated reiteration of the answers. Then the next one is your money. Whatever you're really valuable to, you find money, make money, and spend money on it. If it's not valuable to, you're stingy. You're not going to go there. I don't need that. I don't want to spend money on that. So you look at the hierarchy of your values through what you're spending your money on. Your space, your time, your energy, your money. The next one is where are you most organized and ordered in your life? Because you bring order and organization to what's high in your value, and you have disorder and disorganization to what's low. I was flying on a plane to Melbourne, Australia one time, and I was going to the little bathroom in the front. I was in the front, and there was a lovely girl that was playing on the little thing that folded down the tray. And she had about 15 horses, plastic rubber horses on the tray. And they're all organized by size and color and extremely organized. And so I was standing there waiting for the line to the bathroom. And I said, you love horses? She goes, I do. I said, is your room filled with pictures of horses? Yes. And I went through the criteria of what a value, and it was very obvious that horses were absolutely top of her value. She was 10 years old or something. So your space is showing it, the energy, and you're organized. The way she had organized the color scheme of all the horses, the height of the horses, showed me that's a value. The horses were valuable to her. The next one is where you're most disciplined. You're reliable. I'm reliable to teach, research, and write. I'm not reliable to do other things, but you can rely on me. If you don't know what somebody's highest values, you don't know what you can expect from them, and you're setting yourself up for the perception of betrayal because you project your values onto them and expect them to live in your values sometimes instead of honor them for who their values are. So you look at what it is that you're disciplined, reliable, and focused. That's number 6. Number 7 is what are you thinking about? Number 8 is what are you visualizing? And number 9 is what are you internally dialoguing about how you want your life that shows evidence of coming true? So what are you thinking about, seeing, and talking to yourself about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence? If there's no evidence, you can't write it. If it's not what you want, you can't write it. But if you look, it'll just keep repeating the same pattern again. The next one is what do you want to converse with other people about? People come up to you and say, how's your kids? How's your investment? How's your business? How's your health? How's your golf game? They'll lead the conversation towards what they value most, and it immediately tells you what's interesting to them. So you look at what you externally dialogue with other people about. Again, this will be a reiterated pattern. I've been doing this 46 years. The next one is what is it you are inspired by? It brings tears to your eyes. Moments of gamma synchronicity in the brain where you're literally in an inspired eureka moment. In those moments, it's a sign of congruency with authenticity, with what you value most. And whatever your highest value is, your ontological identity revolves around it. And your epistemological area of expertise revolves it. And your teleological purpose that you feel you're here for revolves around it. So I look at exactly what it is that inspires them. Then I look at what it is that they've had that's the most consistent, persistent goals that they've had for the longest period of time that they're showing evidence of coming true. And then I look at what do they want to study, what do they want to read about, what do they want to learn, what do they want to feed their mind When they go to the bookstore, what area of the bookstore? When they go online, what do they keep looking for? What's their search engine about? And if you take those, there's 13 questions, 3 answers each they're allowed, 39 in all. And you look at which one shows up most frequent down to least frequent, and it gives you a really great objective indication of what their life is demonstrating that's valuable. Because I'm not interested in what they think it is. I'm interested in what their life demonstrates.
We'll be back with the show shortly. I've got a quick question for you. Are you living up to your potential? It's a question that shapes your family, your business, and your overall happiness every single day. That's why I'm excited to introduce the Win the Day quiz. Head over to winthedayquiz.com right now, answer a few thought-provoking questions, and you'll instantly discover how well you're performing relative to your true potential. And here's the exciting part for our Win the Day family. As a fan of the show, you'll receive a personalized and absolutely free action plan to help you win the day every day. Now, just imagine how transformational the results will be when you consistently show up as the best version of yourself in every aspect of your life. Don't miss out. Take the Win the Day quiz now by visiting winthedayquiz.com or click the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. How can someone in a marriage align values with their partner? You see it especially when people have kids in a marriage. It's very easy. Then obviously tiredness sets in. You're not getting as much sleep as you usually would. There's a lot of physiological changes, especially for the mother. And then, communication breaks down. There's financial burdens. There's so many other pressures. And how can people then, whose values may have been together when they were married, keep that together so they can bring harmony to their marriage and their home?
You're not going to have, if any two people are exactly the same, one's not necessary. So you're not going to have anybody that's got the same set of values. No two people have the same set of values. I've been doing this 46 years. There are no two that has the same set of values. Similar, but not the same. So it's not about finding somebody with the same set of values. It's finding out how specifically what they are dedicated to, what's highest on their values, what's most important and meaningful to them. How is it helping you fulfill what's most important to you? If you can make a link between what they're dedicated to what you're dedicated to, you don't need to fix them. You don't need to change them. You just need to appreciate them for their contribution to what they're already making. When you do, you can have dialogue instead of some alternating monologue where you're talking down to them and devaluing them, or you're talking up to them and devaluing you. So it's about linking those values. And two people can sit down while they've ordered food at a restaurant and ask, first do the value determination and then ask, how specifically is this top value helping you fulfill yours? And then how is this one fulfilling back? And just go back and forth and do that. And it'll enhance the communication. It'll allow the people to have more respect for each other. We did a very interesting study in Tokyo where we had 66 attendees. These are executives and leaders and managers of businesses. And 66 of them, they hadn't met each other. So these are all novel entrepreneurs and people and managers. And we paired them off into 33 pairs. And we determined each other's values first. I trained them on value applications. And then we did linking for 2.5 hours, just 2.5 hours of linking. How specifically is your top value helping my top one? How is your first one helping my second one? How is your second one helping my second one? And just link to top 3 values and top 3 values. When we got through, 27 of the 33 pairs did business together and became friends. And I could take any two people and do that exercise and really do it thoroughly. All of a sudden, the differences melt away because they can see how there's nothing to fix in them. If you think that your values are superior to them because of your amygdala, you're going to talk down to them and want to fix them, and they're going to resist you, and then they're going to get arrogant, and they're going to talk down to you, and you're going to create clash.
Which is likely to be the man, right? Like, whose instinct is to solve problems, more likely to be in their masculine energy?
Could be,
yeah.
But it could be the female too. I mean, it depends on who's challenged first. Yeah. Whoever challenged first gets arrogant first.
And someone who shows no willingness to change or to understand how the other person, what they prioritize.
Well, there's nothing to change necessarily, but there's something to honor in what they're doing. Yeah. If you're trying to change them, you're going to bang your head against the wall. Yeah. No one wants to be changed. They just want to be appreciated for who they are. Every human being wants to be loved and appreciated for who they are, and not for what you want to make them. Yeah. So you think of all the people that want to change you all around you.
So you would lean in more to honoring their needs more and more, rather than trying to get them to...
If I can see how what they are doing serves me, I don't need to change them. Mm. And I have a different respect. I could take any two people, even if they're about to split and go through a divorce process, and have them do this exercise, and I assure you that the transformation is mind-blowing, because now they're learning how to communicate in each other's values. They're not trying to make the other one fit their values. This is what most people try. And I had a woman and a man, it was quite interesting, in New York City. I met him in Ohio at a program I was doing. He said, I want you to talk to my wife. So he flew his wife over to New York, because I was living in New York at the time, and it was over to the plaza. I walked over the plaza, and I worked with her at the plaza. And I basically identified her values and identified his values, and we spent the entire morning linking values. Then the afternoon, I taught her how to communicate what she wanted in terms of what he wanted. So everything she wanted, how he would get a win out of it in his values, not hers, his. So when I got through at the end of the day, I left, and then I got a letter from him. In those days, there were still letters, not emails. And he said, I don't know what you did with my wife in that hotel room, but wow, what a difference. I mean, it's like day and night. And all I did is trained, and he paid me to train her how to get whatever she wanted from him. He have no idea what I did. All I did is made her realize that what he was doing and what he was dedicated to, which she thought was challenging her values and she wanted to fix, which is causing an alienation, she saw how it served her. And when she did that, I then had to find out how what she was doing that aggravated him was serving him. And I made the links between them. I did about 80 links on both sides, 80 and 80. And it was like day and night, the difference, because now there was nothing to fix. I said, you need to fix him now? And she goes, no. You want to change him right now? No. What he's doing, I didn't see how it served me. And as a result of it, I didn't respect him. I kept wanting to change him. I said, and he kept wanting to dodge you, and he wanted to change you. And so you're getting into a hornet's nest here. And so it was really quite interesting to watch the transformation in the relationship. All she did is made the links.
You put the union back in the union of marriage.
Exactly. And so people just want to be loved for who they are, and who they are, their ontological identity revolves around what they value most. Find out what they value most, communicate in that, help them get that. It's a game changer, as I said.
So simple, but so powerful.
Yeah, it is very powerful.
What if you're dealing with a partner who has an addictive something they're addicted to? Maybe it's alcohol, or addicted to work, or addicted to porn, or anything like that. How would that influence your approach?
Well, first, I make sure it's not just a label that people are projecting, because anytime somebody drinks more than you do, and they do it in a way that challenges you, you label them. If they drink the same amount as you, and you have a great time when you're doing it, you don't label them an alcoholic. You label them a friend. So you make sure it's not just a label that you project on them because you don't know how to communicate in their values, and you're not honoring and seeing how what they're doing serves you. Because some people aren't really alcoholics, they're just people that social drink. Other people are alcoholics in those cases. But you first find out how it's serving you. You put yourself in this position, find out how it's actually giving you some upsides. Is it giving you a sense of humor? Because usually there's some other benefit that comes along with it, or you'd have left a long time ago. If you try to fix them and change them, you're probably going to push them in their amygdala further because they're not feeling loved. I first do is I always say that addictive behavior is a compensation for unfulfilled highest values. Find out what their highest values are. Find out what they feel is in the way of it. Assist them in finding a way in which they can fulfill that. And their self-governance of their executive center and their medial prefrontal cortex starts governing their amygdala, and their behavior changes. We had a gentleman who was in France who had a major corporation, just sold it, had about 750 million assets plus shares in this company, and he was doing quite well, but he noticed that after he sold it, he had no meaning in life. He was working most of his life. Now he had money without meaning, which typically leads to debauchery. Money with meaning leads to philanthropy. So I chatted with him, and no matter what he was doing, he was drinking all day. And his consultant hired me to help him. And so I asked him, I said, when did the drinking accelerate? He said, right after I sold my business. I said, you used to do business deals. Yeah, he said, but I was trapped doing other things that I didn't want to do, and I needed a break. I was burning out. I said, what if you were just doing deals, you weren't doing anything else, and you went back to the company and said, I'd like to do some deals, just give me a good return on it. He said, well, I like doing deals. I said, what if you went back and started doing deals again? He stopped and he reflected. He goes, it's when I stopped doing deals that my drinking went out of control. I said, yeah, whenever you're not fulfilled doing what's meaningful, your amygdala takes over. It's what happens. The medial prefrontal cortex loses myelinization. It loses its governance over the amygdala, and you go into more extreme impulses and instincts. And you start getting into polarized perspectives and addictive behaviors and compulsions. So we got him back into business. He renegotiated, and he says, I don't want ownership of the business. I just want a fair percentage of what I close a deal. And I ran the business, so I know what that would be, what the margins are. And he renegotiated, and they were grateful for having to come back into the game.
So it's a win-win.
It was a win-win. And the second he did, he says, I don't get drunk because I know I've got a deal to do. And his drinking dropped about 70%. It didn't stop. 70% stopping once he got his executive center back online.
It's like a glass of water, right? Unfulfilled. You got to fill that with something else then.
You filled it with someone else. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions inspire you, it's going to fill up with low priority distractions that don't. And distractions are impulses and instincts from the amygdala. That's what distractions are.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I've personally overcome was this debilitating battle with anxiety from when I was a teenager. How do you feel about anxiety in the modern world that we're in?
Well, anxiety is a compounded, just like you have compound interest. You put $1,000 in the S&P 500, a year later you got 1,100, and a year later you got 1,210, right? It compounds. The same thing with anxiety. You have an event in your life that you have labeled to be traumatic or negative or painful, and you chose not to see the upsides, benefits, etc. And whatever associations, visually, auditorily, smell, taste, tactile, any association you made with that event, now comes along and throughout your day, and you see somebody, let's say that you got into an argument with your boss and he had a white shirt and he had brown hair and a brown mustache. Now you're walking down the street and you see a guy with a white shirt and brown hair and brown mustache, and immediately association, I don't trust that guy. I don't, beware. And so now you've got a stimulus which activates your sympathetic nervous system in a fight or flight response because of an original event that's been compounded. Now we go along and we see a person with a brown hair, brown mustache with a yellow shirt. And now we add a yellow shirt and a white shirt to the original thing. So now you're walking around, and no matter almost every color of the shirts that you run into, you bring this anxiety response. So it's a compounded secondary, tertiary, and quaternary compounding of an original event that you chose not to see both sides to. If you go back to the original event and balance it all out, sometimes the cascading anxieties disappear. We do that quite often. And we go to the exact moment where there's this so-called trauma that you labeled trauma and find out where the opposite was. Find out what the opposite part of the equation. Because you're only traumatized by something when you infatuate with its opposite. If you're addicted to somebody that's praising you, it hurts to get somebody criticizing you. So you look for the pairs of opposites, find them synchronously, and you dissolve the original trauma, and then the cascading secondary anxieties just disappear.
So you believe it all comes back to an original event?
Some original event that's been compounded. Yeah. But most people are not aware of it because they're getting these secondary associations. It's not directly the correlation.
That's interesting. I was able to beat it through, essentially hitting a rock bottom. And, Jim Rohn talks about disgust can be a powerful motivator. And I had a whole bunch of things about learning about breathing and committing and doing all of this incredible stuff, reading self-help books like yours and so many things through that process to overcome it. But I'd never stopped to think about what the original event might be for me because there never was one. It wasn't like a significant traumatic event that I could think about.
Well, a traumatic event could be a breakup in a relationship, an economic issue, it could be any one area of life. And it may not even be trauma. You labeled it trauma because you didn't see the other side.
Yeah.
There are no traumatic events. Right now there's people that are saying, the fires in Los Angeles are devastating and everything else. That's an interpretation of what's happening. But I assure you, there are some people out there going, "Ooh, this is opportunity. I'm in the construction business. I know we're about to build construction. It's going to go bonkers now. So I'm going to finally make up for, the low period of construction." There's other people that are thinking, "No, this is now going to do new wiring, and they're going to do new utilities and upgrade. There's going to be upgrades going on." Those people are not seeing the traumas. So some people are seeing the drawbacks, and then a year from now or 5 years from now, they're going to go, "Oh, wow, thank God this happened because now it did this and this and this." There's been few actual fatalities out of it, but there's going to be a whole lot of opportunities in the next 5 years. They called it Devastating Andrew when Hurricane Andrew hit Florida. 5 years later, they called it St. Andrew, the same event. So I always say, why have the wisdom of the ages with the aging process? Why not look right now for the other side, balance it all out, transform the illusion of trauma, and get on with something right now productive?
Well said. As a human behavior expert, what is the biggest bad habit that you've had trouble overcoming for you personally, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. Everybody around you will project their values onto you and label what you do as a bad habit according to their values. I don't perceive myself as having bad habits. I have habits, but they're obviously, I wouldn't make a habit out of it if I wasn't getting more advantage and disadvantage from it. But other people who have different sets of values will label those things and project onto that. I had a lady come up to me and she says, "You're a terrible father." And I said, "How come?" She said, "We hardly see your kids." I said, "Why would you want a terrible father seeing his kids?" I just turned it around like that. And she just went, "Oh, you have an answer for everything." I said, "Well, that's my job." So it's not necessarily, unless you only judge yourself when you've injected other people's values into your life and tried to live in somebody else's values. You don't judge yourself in your own value system because you're making decisions according to it.
And what about for those who have been burdened a lot by the emotional impact of trying to change their parents? How can people let go of that and begin to focus a bit more on the life that they should be creating rather than trying to change people who are very well embedded in their ways?
You only want to fix people on the outside that represent parts of you on the inside. You're just projecting a part of you that you're not aware of that they're bringing out of you and allowing you now to realize that what you're trying to get a change in them is you. So I don't know about anybody. I'm sure if you look in your life that trying to change your spouse hasn't done pretty well. Trying to make your husband, or you might do a few things. You might get him to open a door, or you might get him to do a few things. But, the dog you can train a bit. But the reality is that people are wanting to be who they are. They don't want to be fixed. So trying to change people and fix people is not the way to do it. By going in there and finding out what they're doing, how is it serving you, and being grateful for it, and then communicating what you would love in terms of a way where they're going to get their values met doing it. So you're doing it as a caring act to help them get what they want. You can get anybody to do that. That's called sales. Selling is caring about somebody. Real sales is caring about another human being to make sure you're filling their needs, their values. So if you do that, you can get people to do things. But it's not because they need fixing. Because you do that, you're going to talk down to them and you're going to be arrogant to them and you're going to project assumptions and you're going to get humbled. But if you care enough about communicating what you value in terms of what they value, and as long as they win out of it, they'll do it. I'll give an example. My wife used to want to go to Le Cirque restaurant in New York all the time. And I could knock out $1,000 for dinner. And I sometimes felt it was a little boring, some of the conversations. And if she drank more than 2 glasses of wine, I didn't know who I was dating. I didn't know I was with at times. So I finally told her, I said, "I think I'm going to pass on going to Le Cirque." And Le Cirque's a lovely restaurant, but it's kind of a rich food and it's, expensive bottles of wine and all that. And I don't drink. I told her, I said, "I'd rather not go there as often as you like." And that wasn't what she wanted to hear, but she was smarter than me. And she basically said, "Okay." So she said, I was talking to Narit, and Narit's with Vernon, and Vernon is the head of a major pharmaceutical company. And he's got a problem right now. And I have a feeling that if we were to go to dinner with him, and their restaurant that they like going to is Le Cirque, that if you chatted with them, most likely you could close some business out of it and make it worth our time. And so now what's she doing? She's helping me get what I want to help her get what she wants. And so I'm off to the restaurant again. And she promised to drink no more than 2 glasses of wine. And we made sure that I didn't have to have rich food. I just got some steamed salmon, carrots, and broccoli. And she gave me what I wanted. And back to Le Cirque we were at. And so it was quite interesting watching how well she communicated in my values to get what she wanted. Yeah. And that was caring. The difference between manipulation and caring is how effective you do it. If you do it in a way where I win out of it, it's called caring. If I don't feel like I'm winning out of it, it felt like it's manipulation.
You can see how it brings love or resistance and hardship, especially to yourself.
Yeah. You create your own craziness. You create your craziness when you assume that other people are supposed to live in your values. Yeah. They're not. They're going to live in their values. Yeah. And they want to be loved for that. And they want to be respected and communicated that way.
Yeah. There have been times in my life when I've entered, pretty deep depression trying to change people who verbally said they wanted help and they wanted to change.
What they say is not what matters. Is what they're willing to do. Yeah, I asked people one time in South Africa at a success summit, how many of you want to be financially independent? 5,000 people put their hand up. Some people put their leg in the air, and some people put both hands and the leg in the air. And then I said, "Great, you all believe that you want to be financially independent. Okay, how many are financially independent?" All the hands went down but 7. And this is an executive group, right? These are people that are, on their way, you would think. But only 7 people had their hand up. And I said, "Isn't it interesting that everybody says they want to be financially independent? It's only 7 have their hand up. So somebody's not walking their talk here. Do they really want to be financially independent? Let's find out." And I gave him a piece. I pulled out a piece of paper. I said, "Pull out a piece of paper. I'm going to give you $10 million US on a pallet sitting there, $10 million US. You got 60 seconds to write down the 10 things you're going to do if I give you the $10 million. On your mark, get set, go. And they're quickly writing as fast as they can. What are they going to do with this $10 million? At the end of the thing, I said, stop. Turn it to the guy on the left. Calculate how much money is still an asset that's not been spent on consumables that depreciate. 20 to 80% of the money was gone in less than 60 seconds, which means that they want the lifestyles of the rich and famous. They want immediate gratification. They don't want deferred gratification, which will never get them financial independence. So what they say they want, what they want are two different things. So I don't go by what people say. I go by what the value determination dictates.
How should someone balance their calling for a purpose-driven future with their duty to stay connected with their life from the past and the relationships from the past?
Well, sometimes it's wise to shed some friends. I ask people, how many of you are hanging out with your kindergarten buddies and your first grade buddies? And it's not usually that often. So you're shedding people along the way, and you're not meaning to. It's not like you're trying to shed people in every case. Sometimes you just get busy on your priorities, and this person just drifts out, and these people come in that are more in line with what you're up to. And so I'm not attached necessarily just because somebody is in your life that's what you do. You're still going to prioritize the people you associate with. You prioritize, what you read. You prioritize what you eat. You prioritize how you spend your money. You prioritize your clients. It's wise to prioritize because your life is dictating it. Your hierarchy of values is dictating your destiny. It's dictating how you perceive, decide, and act. So if you're not taking command of that, you're letting other people run your value system. And living by duty is never as empowering as living by design. So I sometimes you'll shed some people, sometimes you won't. Some people call me up and say, John, I hear you're in town. And I go, yeah, and 13 people will call me. Ken, let's get together. And I said, I'm only there for 24 hours. I only have one afternoon and evening. If you would like to here's all the people that want to go and have time with me. If you can get them all together, we'll all go to dinner. And they'll get 9 of those 13 people together and we'll have dinner. But I can't do it for everybody. So I call the law of lesser pissers, right? You can't go through life without peeing somebody off. So the question is who do you want to pee off? It's a hierarchy of your values is going to determine who that's going to be.
Live by design, not by duty.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're not living from an intrinsic drive, you're going to be living from extrinsic push.
And you can see that there are some cultures, obviously, where duty, it's a much harder thing for them to sort of step out.
Well, Judaism has a very strong cultural community orientation. Indians have this from the family. Bowen, the psychologist, said that most people can't get past their family trap. You start out, as Kohlberg says, you start out with avoid pain, seek pleasure. Then you subordinate to mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers. Then you go into social tiers. And eventually you get to a point of transcending social conformity and convention. Very few people get there. They stop at usually mommies, daddies, preachers, teachers, and get caught in the mores and traditions, conventions of that group, usually local groups, not global. The person that makes it all the way through and goes all the way and lives their life by universal laws instead of human moralities, which are mostly hypocrisies, they're the people that are set free. They're the self-actualized individuals, as Maslow would describe. So I'm a firm believer in studying universal laws and living my life by universal laws, not by just local human inventions, which are the duties that people get trapped by.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that are very well connected with the frequency of money. They make massive money that would seem like magic to people who don't know them really well. In many cases, very, very quickly, it just comes to them. So they're on the frequency of money. I'm on the frequency of relationships where I've been able to secure some of the most incredible relationships. I have a massive Rolodex of some really incredible people that I'm so grateful to be connected with. And it was so interesting when you talk about stuff like the value of hierarchy and you're talking about for someone who doesn't have a lot of money, it's because money is not high on the hierarchy of values. Is that correct?
No. If you have a social network, it's because you have a high value on social contribution and social connection. People that do, they develop amazing things, but they may not have money. There's other people that have incredible value on wealth building, but they don't care about relationships or they don't care about their health or whatever. So everybody's got a hierarchy of values. I've been interested in how do you empower all areas of your life. That's been my strategy for 52 years teaching. And there is a way you can empower all of them. I had a dream when I was 18 to create original ideas to serve human beings across the planet. I wanted to create a global business, which I've been blessed to do. I wanted to be financially independent, which I've been blessed to do. And I wanted to live globally. I didn't want to live locally. I've said since the universe is my playground, the world is my home, every country is a room in the house, every city is a platform to share my heart and soul. And I live on a ship that goes around the world called the world. So I'm a citizen of the world. So these are intentions and these are living by designs. And you can do that in all of them. Social contribution. I've met amazing people on the planet. 9,000 probably movers and shakers on the planet over the years. And but I've consciously made an effort to empower all those areas. So we can do that, but most of us have a hierarchy of values and are not consciously mastering all of them. We're doing it based on the area of our expertise. And then we usually have chaos and weaknesses in the areas over here that we're not focused on. I know a guy that's, he's a very wealthy businessman. He's made fortunes and made big businesses, but his relationship dynamics is third grade level.
Do you think everyone should have those things that you said? Was it the 5 things that you mentioned there that everyone should?
Well, there's no should. It's whatever they would love.
Yeah.
I just know for me, I wanted to empower all of them. I wanted to empower my intellect and my mind. I wanted to create original ideas and genius. I wanted to create a global business. I wanted to create financial independence. I wanted to create a global family. I wanted to create social connections that are, I want to meet all kind of amazing people that move and shake the world. I want to have a vital, energized body, and I wanted to be inspired and create an inspiring movement. I didn't want to be a follower of some culture. I wanted to create a culture.
Yeah. So there are some people where, for example, physical health isn't even anywhere near. They might be great at all these other things. They might be great at relationships.
Yeah, so low on their values, they don't even get to it.
Yeah. But obviously physical health is exceptionally important. Without it, you die very, very early.
Well, it doesn't matter. Well, your hierarchy of values will dictate your actions. You can intellectually go, well, I should be doing this. Like diabetics love to, here I shouldn't be drinking sweets and shouldn't be doing this, but they do it. So you have to, in order to get a diabetic to change, you have to get them to change because of their own decisions, not because of what you told them. Because they're good at telling, but they're not great at listening on that. The hypoglycemic, on the other hand, you tell them something, they'll do it. They'll jump off a building for you. So these are personalities. So you decide where you want, but there's no should about how you should be. I don't find that productive. It's just what exactly is it you would love to do, and how do you want to empower all areas? Most people do. If they knew they could, they would. They just don't. They don't know the tools and the strategies in order to do it. And it's not rocket science. It's something you can learned. You can learn and train and apply. Everybody can grow in any of these areas.
I know you've got a very busy schedule traveling all around the world, but you must have some specific daily routines. Like, are there any particular things that you do every single day that help you show up as your best?
I have bad jokes every day.
Can you share one?
I've got a WhatsApp from a lady in Brisbane, from Brisbane actually. And she said, who is Dr. Demartini? She saw me on a podcast. She says, who is Dr. Demartini? How old is that guy? And then she looked it up, and GPT chat made a list of all these different criteria of me. It was really quite funny. And some of them were pretty accurate, and some of them a little off, a few errors. But one was really most honorable. It said the king of bad jokes. And I thought, okay, I feel at least I've got something at king level,
exactly.
Royalty.
Better to be king of something than
king of something, right? Bad jokes. So that's a routine. I think I'm pretty consistently, there's bad jokes every day. I get up, I drink my water, I shower and clean up. Once a week, I do all my exercise, and then I eat, I think, relatively well. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, pretty moderate there. And I just pretty well spend my day teaching, researching, and writing, and traveling. I travel all the time. I'm either traveling by flying or sailing. So that's it. That's my routine. I don't have much. I'm pretty boring in that respect.
And to flip that then for people, what is the biggest mistake that people have or that they should remove from their daily routine that you notice?
I don't know. Because what is one person's nemesis is another person's, honor. So I don't want to put something that thou shalt not do that. I think that's a foolish thing, because sometimes the things that, are hurtful to some people are very helpful to others. I don't want to put that label on it. I just think that prioritizing your life and living by priority and saying yes to things and dedicating to what's important and delegating the rest liberates, and saying thank you but no thank you to people, learning how to say thank you but no thank you to things that aren't really priority. When you fill your day with high priority things, it's easier to say no to things.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Like how someone can identify what the high priority items would be for them on a given day?
Well, again, you go back through the value determination. On my website, drdemartini.com, there's a free private value determination. No one's going to see it except you. and you go back and fill out the answers as honestly as you can. And your own intuition will whisper to you when you're lying to yourself. So just follow the questions. It'll take you 30 minutes of your time, but it's eye-opening. Because then you'll look and go, no wonder I'm doing what I'm doing. No wonder I have financial issues, or no wonder I say I want to have a relationship, but really not. And I see that a lot. People say, I want to have this soulmate relationship. And then they've been wounded by so many relationships that they're really unconsciously avoiding it and putting it and diversifying everything they're looking for in a relationship through a bunch of people that are actually helping them as clients in many cases. So I look at what their values are, not what they say, and look at their life, what it demonstrates. And that they can do online, and it's free. And once you know what that is, it's about prioritizing your life and asking yourself, what's most meaningful, what's most productive, what's most meaningful, what's most productive, what serves you, which is meaningful, and what's productive serves others. Find out where those match. There's your niche. And get on with that.
Even something that I do every single day, I've been doing it now for almost 4 years, is writing down what 3 things will make today a win. So simple in the morning.
Fantastic.
And they nag away at your brain. Like you mentioned there, the things, if it feels like you're doing the wrong things, it nags away at your brain.
Either way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Mary Kay from Mary Kay Cosmetics, 40 years ago, I was speaking at the Anatole in Dallas, and there was 4,500 women and me. I was the only guy in the place. I thought this is the afterlife. This is what it's about. And then I got to meet with Mary Kay Ash, who owned the company. And I asked her, what advice could you give a young guy who's aspiring to be a professional speaker and travel the world? And she said, well, every single day, write down the 6 or 7 highest priority actions you can do that day. These are actions you do that day, not projects you begin. It takes days. Actions you do that day. And you commit to that and you get them done that day. And only write down what you're committed and willing to do that day. And so I did that on an index card. And then I looked at what was the most common of those answers each day. And it basically boiled down to teach, research, write, and travel. So I've delegated everything else off my plate. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I haven't driven a car in 35 years. I don't do anything else. I'm useless. Everywhere else. Yeah. I make sure I am, just to make sure other people take care of that for me.
Yeah. It's so good, though. It's such a great lesson.
Yeah, because if you're not doing what you love and finding the one thing that you want to excel at, you're not going to build incremental momentum where it's unstoppable. And
also having the patience to let that process slowly unfold. It's not like you can click your fingers and
be patient, because people say, well, by the time I delegated, I could have done it, or they're not going to do it the way I do. There's all kind of traps that I learned from a book called The Time Trap by Alec McKinsey. Traps that stop people from delegating. But you cannot live an inspired life without delegation, because you can't do it all. And not everything on that list is all inspiring. Mm-hmm. So if you're not delegating things that are uninspiring to you, but are inspiring to the people you delegate it to, you're holding yourself back, and you're going to be trapped micromanaging or frustrating yourself or dividing yourself up instead of living what's true to you. Mm. Your life.
Have you heard of the term tension myositis syndrome? It's talking about back pain related to non-structural issues?
Yeah, well, you can definitely have psychosomatic responses and chronic burden psychologically because you feel trapped doing something you don't want to do and create a myositis. Itis means inflammation of the muscles, which is anytime you've got a conflict inside yourself between what you would love to do and what you feel you've got to do, you're going to create myositis.
Mm. It's so interesting that about 12 years ago, when I sort of embarked on the entrepreneurial journey for the first time, I began to notice this chronic back pain. And I went and got, I've had all of these different scans, consulted to just about every expert you can think about in multiple countries related to this. And what was so interesting is that I've realized in the last few years, it's 100% related to stress and emotional regulation for me. I've had quite a rapid ascension in that. My life has changed very, very quickly in so many amazing ways, but I've also gotten married, become a father. So I have competing interests for time. I'm not able to allocate as much time to my business as I want. I'm not able to allocate as much time to my marriage or my kids.
But that all goes down to prioritization.
Yeah.
Because if you go in there and make a list of everything that's really, really meaningful, that's really productive, you don't get stressed or bored or burned out doing the thing that's absolutely most inspiring to you. Yeah. And then delegating the rest, it buys you time to do time for your family. Mm. And the same thing at home. If you're allowing yourself to do stuff you don't want to do around the house, or forcing your spouse to do something they don't want to do around the house, you're going to add stress in the relationship. Allow yourself to delegate. People don't get it. They go, well, it will cost me more and I can't afford it. No, it costs you not to. And if you properly delegate, it pays. If you improperly delegate, it costs. But if you properly delegate and find somebody that would love to do what you want to free yourself up, and you go and do what is more meaningful and more productive, you make way more money than the cost of the delegation. And you liberate yourself from stuff that you don't want to do at home and at work. And you have more time.
And that liberation there is what I noticed is that I began to expect the pain. So I made it real. Every time that I would bend over to wash my hands, every time that I would get out of bed. And even I actually began doing some positive health affirmations a couple of years ago, which alleviated it almost instantly. But I realized a few months ago it started to come back with a few other things that were going on. It was like an electric shock that was so tough it would actually knock me to the ground sometimes. And it was a good reminder to start doing things like those morning health affirmations and prioritize and delegate. And
if you prioritize what you're doing, you're not going to be stressed. When you're doing this interview, I doubt if you're highly stressed. This is something that you're spontaneously... See, there's in the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, there's an area there which is the primary integration center. And in there are what they call spontaneous potentials that initiated spontaneously in the brain that causes action. So you spontaneously act without needing any evoked potentials from outside stimuli. When you're doing that action, you maximize your energy level, you maximize the clarity level, the vision, you maximize your potential, and your physiology and autonomics, because it's that area of the brain controls the autonomics and the hypothalamus. It automatically normalizes autonomics and creates a gamma synchronicity. There's literally a synchronicity in the brain that harmonizes the brain and correlates that with the heart. So the intercardiac network in the heart and the brain correlate. In that state, you're authentic. You don't have stress there. You're doing something you're absolutely inspired and love doing, and you don't even notice time. You feel you're in a timeless mind, ageless body state. When you're doing priorities and living that way, the symptoms aren't needing to come there to point you to get you to that state. All the symptoms are trying to get us there.
And that high performance state where physically, mentally, you just feel bulletproof walking through the day. It's absolutely extraordinary.
When I was 35, I believe, I was living in Cardiff, California. And there was a little bitty juice bar down on Cardiff on one of the streets right near the railroad track. And we would go there and sometimes have some carrot juice. And I went there and got a carrot juice, and I was listening to three other guys talking. And one of them was a martial arts specialist, and the other two were interested in martial arts and philosophy. And, when you talk philosophy, I got to listen in. And so I said, do you mind if I join you guys? And they go, join us. We started talking. I started adding something that was contributive. He was adding something contributive to me, and we really connected. And I said, I would really like to learn some martial arts from you. He says, well, I'd like to learn some philosophy. Let's get together and help each other. So he comes over to my place we had a 3-story place over the beach. He comes over and he says, okay, I'm going to give your first martial arts class. Okay, great. He said, I'd like you to try to kill me. I go, you're my teacher here. I don't want to kill you. And he goes, well, then you don't want to be my student. I guess we won't do this after all. I said, but you want me to kill you? Yes, I want you to try to kill me. He was sincere. I thought, this is weird. So I tried a punch. As I punched, it was like I was put into slow motion. He grabbed my hand with some sort of Hapkido move, put me off balance, pulled me off balance, and kissed me on the cheek and put me back on balance. And I went, whoa. And he said, you didn't succeed in killing me. You must try again. And I'm like, now, when I first started, I had zero interest in killing him. But after that, I had about a 4% interest. It was going up. So I did a forward kick. Boom. And again, he just moved to the side gently, grabbed my foot, pulled it off balance with a Hapkido move, and leaned like this and kissed me on the cheek and put me back on my feet. He had complete control. And I thought, okay, now I'm about 12% interest in killing him. It's going up. And so I do this back kick. And same thing happened. By the time the third thing, I'm going, maybe this guy's just a gay guy who wants to kiss me on the cheek. I don't know what this is. This is a setup. And then he bowed to me and he says, okay, our first lesson today is that to a neophyte who perceives attack, it's different from a master who perceives an invitation to dance. If you're masterful and prepared and have foresight, no matter what anybody does, it's an invitation to dance. There's no reaction. There's no defense. If you're on defense, you're not prepared. And I thought, wow, what a great metaphor. That people who live by their executive function and people that are reasonable and objective and have a more balanced view, they don't react. They spontaneously act out of love. And if you aren't, and your amygdala, you're going to see prey or predator, and you're going to be impulsive or instinctual, and you're going to be having intrusive thoughts by things you like or dislike. And you're going to be reactive, and you're going to be in survival mode and in systems one rapid response mode before you can even think. And you're now reacting before you think. And you can't possibly win in martial arts when you do that. Mm-hmm. So it was a great lesson.
Yeah, you use so much more energy as well, don't you?
Oh, yeah, you don't drain your energy.
The masters are so efficient.
There's no draining of energy. You're just doing a Tai Chi maneuver and invitation to dance.
Yeah, snow skiing is a good example. You watch someone who's a real pro at that. They're just so efficient, barely use any energy.
Yep.
You watch a rookie, they're just tumbling down the mountain.
Yeah, I think in every field you become more efficient. What's interesting is there's a law of efficiency, a law of least action, Proteus, the mathematician, described. And when you're living in your very highest values, that area of the brain lights up. So it allows us to be most effective and efficient at being authentic in our expression of what is most meaningful.
What do most people get wrong about the law of attraction?
They live in a fantasy that they're supposed to have in their mailbox $1 million check by just visualizing it. I'm going to see $1 million check and it's just going to come there. Not that it couldn't. It's just the probability is pretty low. If you go out there and go spend the next 10,000 days looking out for $1 million check in your mailbox, the probability is about 1 in 1 billion. But if you go out there and find some human being or group of human beings or ever greater numbers of human beings that you can directly or indirectly provide a product, service, or idea to, and go out of your way to care to efficiently and effectively deliver that in a way that's more valuable to them than your competitors, don't be surprised if you end up with $1 million in your hands, because you now did millions of dollars worth of service. So the probability is just more logical if you apply the principles of economics and sustainable fair exchange in business.
You feel like there's, to me, when I look around, there seems to be a big state of apathy in the world. I feel like if people could shift away from apathy by looking to be of service and improving the value they have, so they have more value to give.
Yeah, because they're narcissistically expecting something for nothing, and they're not interested in having sustainable fair exchange. Every symptom in our life is trying to get us to sustainable fair exchange and to authenticity. If you puff yourself up, you eventually get humbled by somebody. If you beat yourself up, you'll sacrifice and say, darn it, I deserve better than this. It's just going to teach you how to be yourself and to try to honor other people with themselves. That's why linking values is so useful.
Mm. And last question now before the rocket round. On your best day, what's an affirmation that you would write on a flashcard that you could show yourself on your worst day?
Well, my internal affirmation is I do what I love what I do. That's what my life is that.
Well, let's now move into the Win the Day Rocket Round. 10 questions for some quick answers. You up for this one, John?
Sure.
Number 1, what quote inspires you the most?
No matter what you've done or not done, you're worthy of love. And the magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll impose on yourself. So don't become second at being somebody else. Be first at being you.
Love that. Rewind. Listen to that one again. You mentioned you don't drink. So question number 2 is morning coffee or evening wine. Do you have a morning coffee, or is there some other drink that you have as part of the day?
I've had 3 cups of coffee my entire life, 2 in Texas, 1 in Peru. I'm not a coffee guy, and I don't drink wine. I've had 1 glass of wine in 52 years.
Yeah. Next time in Australia, actually don't start the coffee in Australia, because then you'll never stop at the slippery slope.
I'm just I don't like stimulants. I don't like sedatives. I just like water. Mm. I live with drinking water. That's my thing. And ginger tea and vegetable juice.
Mm. Number 3, what's one bit of advice you would give your 18-year-old self?
You're on track. Stay with it. Stay inspired.
Number 4, what book do you gift the most, or that contributed most to the mindset you have
I don't
today?
always give them the book, but I encourage people to read Syntopican Volumes 1 and 2 by Mortimer Adler, which is some of the greatest ideas by the greatest minds of the Western world over the last 2,700 years. Mm. It's a very beautiful collection of about a 2,000-page. It's 2 volumes totaling 2,000 pages on some of the greatest ideas by the greatest topics by the greatest minds.
Mm. Number 5, was there a vulnerability you once hid within that became your superpower?
Yeah. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't speak properly. Devalued myself. And now I'm a specialist in speaking, writing, traveling the world, and become wealthy. So The very voids became my values. So if you're out there and somebody said something to you and said you couldn't do it or whatever, that could be the greatest blessing in your life. It could create the void that you need to do something amazing.
Number 6, what's one thing you've learned about failure?
As long as you're addicted to success, you're going to fear it.
Number 7, if you could sit on a park bench and have a conversation with someone alive or dead, who would it be?
Still, I'd like to talk to Einstein. He died right when I was a year old. I went to the Institute of Advanced Studies where Einstein used to do his work, and Freeman Dyson, who took over his position in 1955 when he died, I befriended and had dialogues with him a few times. That was my way of, because I got to go on the actual blackboard where he typed, he wrote in E = MC squared. So I went there and wrote my formula up there. I created a mathematical formula. I put it up there. So that was my way of getting close to him because he knew Einstein very well.
Incredible. And number 8, what tool or resource best helps you run your life or your business?
Prioritization. I mean, I've done it so many times. I don't have anything else I need to delegate because it's just all delegated.
Number 9, share one thing on your bucket list. What's left?
To continue to teach, research, write, and travel the world. That's what I've loved. There's still some countries I haven't gotten to speak in, and there's still millions of people I haven't gotten to share with.
And last question, number 10, what's one thing you do to win the day?
Well, I think living by priority and saying no to things that aren't really meaningful and surrounding myself with people that love doing the things I want to delegate.
Well, there are a bunch of ways to connect with Dr. John Demartini. We'll link to all of these in the show notes. You can follow him on Instagram at Dr. John Demartini. Visit his website at drdemartini.com and grab a copy of his new book, Balance the Mind, Heal the Body, on Amazon. He's also provided a free audio experience for the Win the Day family. It's called Awaken Your Astronomical Vision, and you can find a link to that and more in the show notes. I also want to dedicate this episode to our mutual friend, Kerwin Ray, who passed away last year, who had an incredible impact and continues to have an amazing impact on so many people around the world. So, John, thanks so much. It's been an absolute dream of mine to have you on the show, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on your great show and all the great questions. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Win the Day podcast. We want to hear your thoughts on what we covered today, so drop a comment on the YouTube version of this episode with your favorite takeaway, any questions you have, or what actions you'll be taking as a result of what was shared in this episode. And if you found value in the Win the Day podcast, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You'll find a link to both of those in the show notes. It'll only take you a few seconds, and more ratings really helps other people discover the show so they can get the mindset upgrade they need, and we can bring more winners into the Win the Day movement. That's all for this episode. Get out there and win the day. Until next time, onwards and upwards, always.